Hey, we should get going. Okay.
So Mike was kind enough to do a tutorial today about hard surface modeling. Are you recording, Mike, or not yet?
I'm going to start in about a second. Yep, starting recording. Okay.
All right, hard surface modeling with Mike. Let's do it. You have to share your screen, though.
Yep. Yeah, that would help. Here we go. All right. Can you guys see Quill? Purple background.
Yes, sir.
All righty, let's get going. So, all right. So hard surface modeling. So I'm going to cover a few things in this. Here's a HotRod that I made. I'm a car buff, in case you didn't know. And this is like a good example. I mean, it's a car, but you can imagine anything non-organic or mechanical could be made this way and is made this way. I'm going to show you the Quill way of doing it, which is really unique, nice, and like allows you to draw. But at the same time, it's the way you model anything. So the principles I'm going to cover are the idea of form as it's defined by curves. So cross-section curves. And curves are something every 3D modeler, hard surface modeler understands. And a curve is just a curve. It's a spline. And when a curve is extruded along a path, you get a surface, complex surface. So that's what we're basically doing to make something in 3D. And the second thing is how, basically taking off from what Goro did last week, light and color, how that affects 3D objects, but specifically hard materials, hard surfaces, and in this case, something reflective, like a car, okay? So here's the scene we're going to do. I'm going to make this HotRod, hopefully as close as I can today. And essentially, it's got a drive loop like this, right? Which is the way Goro has shown us to do a drive loop. But what I'm going to basically do is start by modeling a wheel and then move to the rest of the body. And the idea there is that like a construction of a wheel is a great example of hard surface modeling. So, that's the ready bake version. Oh, now let's go to this guy. Okay. So we're in a fresh scene. The first thing we want to kind of understand is the idea of reflections and how they work on a curved surface. So I've got some reference for you here. So here's a car. Here's a car. We're going to do a black car, a black reflective shiny car. And the idea, first of all, one of the key things when you want to model something, unless you're making it up completely, is to have reference. And the idea of reference is not just for pictures, but also specific views of something called orthographics, which is dead-on views of something that show it from the perfect side, front, or top. So this is like a front orthographic view example. This would be the side orthographic view, as close as you can get, of the HotRod we're going to model today. And you can see some of the key things I've done, like wheelbase. Wheelbase is how long a car is, and typical car wheelbases are 3.5 wheel lengths. So whatever the diameter of a wheel is, 3.5 of those spaced apart is about your average automobile for 4 people. Black paint, the way it works. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a desert, the perfect environment to test reflections. Let's say it's the desert. Here's an example of a black car paint that's reflective. What you're seeing is the blue of the sky reflecting down, bouncing off of this curved surface to your eye. And so the more normalized that ray is, like straight into your eye, the clearer you see the car paint. The more glancing, or that normal is, so way up here on the car hood or way back here on this angle, the more you're going to see the blue, the environment itself. And that's why you get gradations. Perfect gradations. And then what you see here is the tree line. That's what's reflective. Here's another really good example. This car is black, but what you're really seeing is the blue of the sky. The closer it gets to your eye, the more deeply you see into it. It's just like water. You're going to see the black of the car paint. The more glancing the angle, the more you see the sky. Same with the ground. And the sharp reflections you always get on car paint, on reflective things, are just what you see out here. Okay? So that's kind of the idea. And now we're going to talk about like hard surface modeling. So you're like, how do I make a wheel? You can make stuff in Quill the same way you make it in anything else. It's just that it's not going to necessarily be welded vertices. So let's start with a car wheel. Like car wheels are complex, but the way I would do something like this is the reference. Here's a profile of a car wheel. Go into and I'm going to start by basically making a few things. I've actually made a few things here ahead of time. I've made a sunset sky dome, just a gradation, and I've made a distant background, which is just something to reflect into these trees, into the car paint, and a ground plane. Okay, so, but we're going to work on the car. So let's make a new group. All go in there, make a new paint layer, call it wheel front. Let's give that a group, call it wheel front. Put this in there. That way we can do more with the wheel and just manipulate it all using the group. Okay, so with wheel front paint layer, let's start painting this profile. The way I'm going to do it is essentially starting at the top. I'm going to make a cross section of this thing as a ribbon and then revolve it perfectly around the center.
Can you hide the other references, Mike? So
yes. And the key with reference too is bringing it in, however you're going to bring it in. You want to select it here and go here and do reset pivot, reset transform. That'll set it perfectly to the cardinal axes of Quill. And then you can scale it and move it to place using the gizmo. And so now when I use a brush tool and I'm here, I can...
You're still on the image layer.
Sorry. I can do something like this. I'm going to also turn on the polygons so you can actually see the polygons I'm creating when I paint. I'm going to go in this direction, and the idea is really all you're doing is a sort of a crude construction of this thing. And you don't really have to be that accurate either. What I really care about more is getting the proportions of a wheel right. I mean, the thing about tires is they're deceptive in how complex they are, and what you want is, if you want it to really feel right, there's a few key things you need. You need it to break at some point here and start to go inwards towards the hubcap. And that's what's going to give you the sense that it's like a tube or a donut versus just a flat disc.
And the reason why you're not doing like one long stroke and grabbing it and bending it is because you won't be able to be perfectly parallel, right?
You won't be able to be perfectly parallel, and even though these have overlaps, that won't matter. What will matter is having a nice clean ribbon. I'll show you, because when I revolve it, everything is going to be perfect.
That makes sense.
And the more accurate you are here with these strokes and line them up, the cleaner your model can be. So you can get crazy if you want. I'm just going to do it sort of quickly, but here we go. So
yeah, I'm just surprised that with that amount of strokes, it's still performant, right? Mobile ready.
So totally, and you could optimize this. And if I drew this really huge and shrunk it down, it'd be even higher poly. But I'm going to basically go with this, right? And then do essentially what is the, like, back of a hubcap, like just a backside, or maybe the brake disc would sit or something. Okay, so that's one half. We want this curve here to get like a nice dome. Well, again, lots of ways to do this, but you can just make a big like sphere if you wanted to. You don't have to do it this way, but I like to be sort of accurate because, again, fashion design, it's like sketching and drawing is a big part of it. It's not just about accurate machining. The gesture is really important, and that's what I love about Quill is it lets you play with both. It lets you do the freehand sketchy part as well as the accurate part if you need it. Okay, so there's like a good cross section of a wheel. What you do now is grab it all and move the pivot down to the center. Part you can get more accurate with this, but I'm going to go with this, right? So there it is, and then I just say it's just one of these. You can see how high poly this thing is, right? Because I wanted to show you what a really detailed wheel could look like, right?
This is giving me flashbacks to when I made my couch for the work from home.
Yeah. And if you wanted to distort this, you use the grab tool, like to do fun abstract shapes with it. But I'm just saying, like, this is essentially how you would construct this. And then if you need to optimize it, you just optimize it. It's pretty good, decent. For that demo, I may not need wheels this detailed, but I'll go ahead and use this anyway because it's kind of fun. So what you want now is to like just select the regions and colorize them. So the first thing is just get it all black. And then I do, let's see, we want to go back to our ref. So we can hide this guy now and go back to our side view of our car. And
I think the folder, no, there it is. Yeah.
oops. Actually, I want to keep the pivot right where it is instead of messing with it, but I'm just going to get it to about the rough scale just so I can. Okay, so then we're going to just go around and colorize this guy using that. So it's got the white wall here, right? And Daniel also mentioned this last week. You over select and then deselect. is the way you get stuff quickly. Right?
Do you ever separate it now into layers so it's easier to reselect? Or?
Yes, except with like the white wall, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Like that part, I don't care as much, but I will when I do the hubcap.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And only because when this wheel is spinning, to get the chrome reflection to work in Quill, I'm actually not going to move the hubcap and keep it still and just jostle it, right? And that's just a side effect of working like it's chrome, so you got to have it keep the horizon line in the same place. But everything else can actually physically spin. So, okay, so there's like my white wall, and then I want to do the interior here. It's like, sometimes I do split it up because I may want to like not have a hard time, but in this case, it's so simple to select it, honestly, that it doesn't matter. Get our red, okay, and then let's grab this, and now I'll move that to a new layer and call it Chrome Center. Okay, so, and on that guy, it's a good example of how you paint materials, right? So you've got the sky reflecting. This dark band is whatever is reflecting out here compressed down into, a tight mess, essentially. And then your ground plane. So if this is in the desert, it'll be generally bluer. Well, we're going to do sunset, but for the sake of this, let's go with blue. Same color.
Yeah, you want to bring your ground and your background, so
we could. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Then we can match it to that.
So here's a ground plane like the desert, and here is sky dome. Let's turn this off. Okay, and here's something to reflect out there. It almost doesn't matter. That could be darker, by the way. But I didn't want it to be distracting. Okay, back to Chrome. So the blue of the sky roughly is going to get painted in here. Let's do a quick nudge on this. See if that's set out.
So what he just did is he had some Z fighting going on because there was like
flickering.
It was flickering because planes are exactly mathematically correctly on top of each other. So just to fix the flicker, so you just have to just nudge it just a little bit, and then it would go away.
And that's basically all I do is dust the color of the ground on the bottom, color of the sky on the top of this dome, and I'm going to darken the middle arbitrarily. But, so that it almost doesn't matter. You can sit here and draw special reflections too if you wanted to, or only select certain parts of this. It's also not required. But that's essentially it. And you can also do like a dodge to get like a hot spot if you wanted to, but it really kind of depends on your, right? So that's kind of what I would imagine is reflecting out there. Remember, as your surfaces converge, everything sort of distorts and the reflections also, and the lighting also compress. You get, so everything gets more high dynamic range towards the centers. Okay, so
what Mike was just doing is also like repeating what I was talking about last week is the environment matters how you colorize anything in your painting, right? So you like even when Mike wasn't showing the background, he thought of what is around it. So you should be always aware what is around you in order to be able to define your colors.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do it really quickly just to show you what if I got rid of ground and all this. That does not look right anymore. So what I would really want to do in if that chrome was whoops, duplicate that. What I really want to do is paint this the color of the sky. So in this case, it would be like much bluer, and the desert ground would be what it is. So that now feels like I'm in this atmosphere. All I changed was the sky. You're actually reflecting this now. So anyway, that's the idea behind Chrome. Okay, and let's go back to the cars. So, okay, so there's my wheel. The other thing I wanted to probably do is capture that like inner dark band in there. So let's go.
You're 20 minutes in, by the way.
Okay, real quick. And this is where you can, like, you know, you don't have to go crazy, but I like doing a little bit of defining a form. So you're thinking of this as it's ambiently lit, because the reason is this wheel's going to turn. It's going to animate. So if I was illustrating this, I would be I'd be doing this. I darken here, brighten here, right? Like that. But I don't want to do that because as it spins, it'll look like it's weird. So what I'll just generally do is darken that whole band. Because, whoops, go back. And I want to do it fairly evenly. Because I just more want to get the distinguishing of the form rather than lighting. I can show you a trick how to get this highlight to work while this is spinning afterwards. Same with this white wall. I would technically darken this, but since it spins, I can't. Anyway, the other thing I do in my thing, stylized-wise, is I draw some lines. This is where Quill is amazing. You can't really do this in a 3D tool, but it adds a lot of character, and it is the way car designers draw. You know, so I can do, so if we do this, I get like something on the wheel as it's spinning, because what kind of helps a wheel look like a wheel is the tread, right? And you don't want to sit there and model all of that. And what's great is if I was illustrating cars or sketching cars, I'd do it the same way. I'd do a quick line. It's sort of the way Daniel described when he was drawing characters. Then he went to do the corner of the mouth. He didn't actually model all that. He just drew a quick gestural sketch. It's like cartoony. This is very similar. Car design, all sorts of things do this. So, you know, this is what's amazing about Quill to me, is I can do both of these at the same time with the same tool. Okay, so there's that. That's kind of cool. When this thing starts spinning, these will give it even more of a sense of motion. Otherwise, you won't notice. Like, you kind of want to space them out differently because tire treads are not evenly spaced. Okay, that's good enough, right? So that's my wheel. Now I'm going to get rid of that. And this is also, what's nice is this is centered perfectly. So when it spins, it'll look good. It's actually not perfectly centered, pretty close.
It's because of your lines, right, that you added.
The lines, you're right, you're right. The actual model itself is actually the lathe stuff.
But you know what I like about that stuff is it adds to the
That's
rotation.
character.
You know?
It totally does. And in a way, like, it's going to look, honestly, the other one I did was way more movement, and it's fine. So, as long as you're not,
like a real tire would do the same because the ground is not even, right?
Totally. And it totally works. It almost looks too mechanical if you don't have a little variation, a little noise in the jitter. In fact, when you animate at the very end on high def stuff, you do add some. Okay, so let's get this in here. My picture is not perfect, that I'm going off of, so I want to stick to reality here. The back wheel of a hot rod is usually a smaller wheel, thicker tire. So, but I can use the same thing if I wanted to, by just sort of stretching it. So I can show you that. See, so that's my wheel front. Let's duplicate it.
How come you know so much about proportions and stuff about cars?
Okay, so I studied car design, got a degree in it in
Oh,
college.
you did? Okay.
Yeah, so I went to Art Center, which is like a car design school, and we study, automotive engineering and car design, which is,
I
kind of
went to art center.
yeah, and it's funny because I got into games. Oh man, so I had some teachers you all have probably heard of.
Sid Mead.
No, I wish. He did lecture once, and he did go to Art Center, and he's like the guy that inspired me to go into cars because he was a car designer that did concept art, which is what I like to do. I don't design cars. I actually use those skills to design, games and VR. But Sid Mead, Craig Mullins was a teacher there. The guy that designed the original Shelby Mustang taught there. The guy that taught designed the El Camino was a teacher of mine, Harry Bradley. A lot of famous guys. A few women too. Not as many women, I have to say. Women in cars are in the car industry are more rare than women in games. Like it's that hard to find because it's such a male-dominated thing, which is unfortunate. And people want to change that. Let's see. I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger by just scaling it, which is kind of cheating. So, technically, the rear tire is different dimensions, different proportions, different wall thickness, but I'm just going to cheat it for this to get it close. And then what you can do is go in here to the wheel, and because I want it to be wider in the back, I can just select. Do a clean selection. It's easier. But you kind of have to hide the gizmo at times to oops. So here, so a little wider. Just flat. I'm really being picky here. You don't have to do this, but can't help myself.
It looks clean when you do it, though.
Yeah, it does. It's satisfying. And again, it's showing you the process, which is my most important goal here, is to get you to understand surface modeling. So you can see how you can extend something. That's a quick way, right? And it feels like it's the same. The important thing is it's the same fidelity of 3D that everything else in your scene is. As long as everything's consistent, it feels right. If something's really clean, something else totally sketchy, that's when you don't. That's what you end up with in my 3D programs. Okay, so you got these two now. Let's.
You might want to save at this point.
Yeah. Thank you. Hot demo save. Capture. Okay. So now I'm going to start the body. So you've got your two wheels. Oh, the other thing is cars are like humans. They're bilaterally symmetrical, generally. So you only need to model one side and then here. So I'm going to work on the body. And the body is mostly a few things. It's the grille with some details on the front. It's an engine block. And it's what we call the chassis or the body of the car, right? If you look at the body of this car, you can break it down the same way as a wheel. Open up some of this reference here. So Let's look at this one, for example, right? So if you look at this, this is a Ford, a 32 Ford. It's a very typical old car that people turn into hot rods. It's a beautiful shape, right? It has the outboard wheels. And by the way, when you look at this, notice all these little body details. This little bump here this is stuff car designers love. These little blisters and bumps, and they sit here and like make them custom. And, that kind of detail you can't model in Quill, but what you can do is draw it. The same way I was saying earlier with the gestural stuff, and it's actually even better, honestly, and it captures a nicer feeling than trying to sit there and model it super accurately, which you can do, but this is different. Okay, so looking at this, I want to start doing the body itself, so this like cowl area kind of thing is like the first thing I'll do. So essentially, using the ref, let's go back here. All right, let's make a new group. Call it body, and then in there, new paint layer. Call it body main. Okay, and let's just start by sort of the same method.
You put it in the wheel group, by the way. It doesn't matter right now, but I think it's inside.
Oh, good one.
The wheel.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, let's get that out of there. Okay, car all. So you got your wheels and you got your body. Okay, so starting here, I'm gonna like essentially draw a ribbon that's going to define the bottom edge of the car. And again, it does not have to be perfect. But one thing I know from cars is, and you can study it here, you can see it right here. This curve, it's subtle, but it goes in. It's like a bow. It's like a flattened cylinder. So this is not perfectly vertical to the ground. It's actually like this. And that is why cars reflect the ground plane. Otherwise, they would only reflect the horizon. So now I'm going to move that up. Tilt it a little bit. Let's turn this on so you can see what we're doing. And then I'm going to redo. What that does is it gives you a nice clean sort of continuous surface if you actually do it right. So let's do this. Move it out here. And actually, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to redo this one. I'm going to redo the next one because I do want to break right there at that point. So now I'm going to go here. So
is this curve mainly for aerodynamics, or is it actually for design, so it reflects the environments nicely?
Both. It reflects the environment nicely. So one thing to keep in mind, if you ever are in a 3D program and you want to check out reflections and play around with reflective surfaces, do not use a cube. Do not use the Cybertruck. Anything with flat planes are tricky. They don't, it only reflects one ray of light. A curve picks up gradation, and so you get variation. So that's one reason that cars, and then the other is structural. Like a flat plane is weaker than a bow or a curve. And aerodynamics is the other thing. So streamlined shapes are generally curved and teardropped, except for Cybertruck. Okay, so there's this, right? So that's kind of your side door panel. Now I'm going to make this like part that curves here. So I'm going to use like a slightly different, like this brush was too fat. So I'll just do this. Okay, and then rotate, redo. And if I wanted to get accurate and do the interior of the car, I would stop here. I would stop here, about here, and start doing this. Like the door panels going in. But in this case, I don't care because it's going to be not going to be a convertible. I'm not going to see the inside. So I'll just go like straight across. And I'm going to go to about the width of the car. If the car is going to be about this wide, and I can discuss car widths later, but essentially, so two squares here is about the car. So about that. All right. So there's that shape. You got that going. Now, you don't quite see the curve of this until you start to actually paint it. And this is where you have to understand what Goro talked about last week. Is lighting. Where's my light coming from? What's the environment? All this kind of stuff matters. So I'm going to show you how to make this look like that, essentially. Let's hide the reference. Okay. So I'm going to just close those gaps. Okay, good enough. What's happening here is the sky's reflecting on this top plane. I have all these, and go in here, and just, put in the purple of the sky. Just it in there. There's a break here in this surface, and that's why I'm going to grab all of these continuous curved surfaces before they break again. Give them a dusting as well. However, they are facing a lower part of the sky, so they're a little more orange. So they will actually look like this. And then this is reflecting the ground plane. However, at the horizon, it's going to reflect the dark stuff out here. So I will basically sample the ground color, and dust it on. Really, that's almost all you need. But, you can go crazy. And, I want to really darken this. By the way, to get something to really, really shine, the difference between like lacquer paint and brushed metal is this edge here is sharp or blurry. In brushed metal, this edge will blur. This edge here between your sky and your horizon. In a reflective paint, it'll be sharp, sharp, sharp. In chrome, it'll be as sharp as you can imagine. The highest contrast is chrome or a mirror. So technically, that's a little bit shinier all of a sudden than, and you can put variations in it like that, just so it's not so mechanical. But let's just say it's something like this, and since it's black, it really will be generally more dark than light. So, okay, so something like that. And same with the sky, it will generally darken. And the core shadow will also of your horizon be a little bit.
You're 40 minutes in, Mike.
That's cool. It's actually going to come together pretty quick. Okay, so then you got this. Now, let's go back to reference. Okay, so I've got that. Now I want to do this back part. Same thing. I'm going to start by doing, there's a couple of ways to do this. So I would do, yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't always, but I did in this case because I wanted to show you the, oh, by the way, when you got reference, it just sees through everything.
Yeah.
So only select that, color select that. Because, when you in this case, I'm going to show you modeling, but also it is nice to have the wheels there because it gives you a sense of the spacing of the car. Like the most important dimension in a car is its wheelbase. The distance from this center to this center determines a lot of things. Sports cars, compact cars all have a different wheelbase. So that's one reason. Okay, I wanted to get that back part, so I'm going to kind of go with that. This is where Quill's other brushes are nice. It's probably better to use this one with the curved end to do this. By the way, the wheels are outboard on this car, so let's go and grab all of the body. Outboard meaning the body of the car and the wheels are actually sticking out, not inside the car. Like, oops. You see how they're actually this one's better. See, the wheels here are out of the car. In a normal car, that is a cutout and the wheels stuck in. So outboard means out. So I just moved the body in, essentially. So there's body main. Where are we at? Okay. So
You have to move the reference, I think, because you moved the car in.
oh, that's okay. That's fine. The reference is not so accurate. I just wanted to get a rough idea. And it shows you, like, again, you can be really accurate and use blueprints, or you can just gauge it. You really want to get the general proportions of front, side, top. Okay. And let's see. So it kind of does this like sweep in the back like that, which is cool. So one thing you can do here, right, is, let's see. So I probably do it. But looking at it from here, I want to make sure and get that nice curve that you notice in a car from there. So it's like what Daniel, I think, was saying, also Goro, about silhouette is really important. Same thing with cars, with anything, really. You want to look at it from the angles, make sure your outer silhouette feels right. That's how you define form, most importantly. Like your eye sees that outer silhouette more than anything else. Okay, so now straight across. Okay, so now we've got that. Now, to do the dip part, there's a bunch of these. You can either do it like this, where like you could either do it like this. Uh, or you can do it like, there's a lot of ways. Another way to do it is really to draw it and then use the grab tool, which I've also done. So you can do that, that. So yeah. right?
I think you're nudging, not grabbing.
Oh, am I? Oh, geez, yeah, you're right. So, well, do this. This, right? Just really trying to just make that fillet work, the intersection between that and the next plane change. Um, so that's one way, right? Or the other way is you construct it first. Deselecting and reselecting things, but it resets the axis gizmo to the cardinal axis because it keeps the last one you have. So you can do it this way and then use the grab tool on that. Like instead of using it on a ribbon, you freehand drew a more sort of machined or sort of, depending on how many of these cross sections, a little more of a like a regular shape, right? Bad examples, right? And then that's that part. Then you want to get, let's look at the reference. Okay, so this dips like this. It just goes like whoop, right down to a flat. So actually, when I notice that, I just want to draw it like this, probably. Yeah, probably like this. So you could start with one of these and go in this direction instead. And that's essentially what things it is more like yeah. Okay. So that, and then I want to just angle that a little bit, right? Nudge it so it just meets, it meets that surface right there, that corner. That, right? And then grab that. You want to catch the major plane changes. We're not as concerned about the super detailed stuff. So to close this, this is generally, honestly, it's just going to be. It's really just. You can just select the whole thing. Just do that. Oops. There you go. Right.
You're at 50 minutes.
Uh,
You want to go a bit over today, or?
yeah, I don't mind. See how far we get. It's really going to come together quick as soon as we get like mirrored. See it. I want to show you how to do like the detail. Okay, something like this, and then let's make those you want to the idea of the ground plane. So go dark, light, and like the wheel itself is reflecting back into the chrome. So yeah, it is going to be black right there probably. And the reflection being sort of the horizon being a clean straight line is important. Otherwise, cars feel like they're not mechanical, they're organic. So let's get that continued. And this is where the number of ribbons matters, right? You wanna be able to, again, continue that reflection line across. You want to make sure that horizon continues. These little overlaps are fine because that's actually just what your reflect. It actually makes your reflection look better, right? Because that's what you would actually see is small inconsistency. The key is you want this and this to be about the same color, and the same with this and this and this as well. Sky. Now you can really see it. You can push it in where it needs to go. And then it's like just do the dodge. And this is where dodge is important, like Goro said. Your base colors are set. This is like a diffuse. Now I want to heighten. I'm not adding any new hues to anything. I'm heightening what's already there. So dodge makes sense. Maybe, it'll catch a highlight there. Another way to do this, you don't have enough verts to get a nice highlight, right? To get a tight one. And so what I would do instead is draw it. It's again where Quill rocks versus Maya. The number of camera moves, material tweaks, just to get a highlight to show from my camera view, when I can just do this, is really nice. And it's also like when you car design, you do this. You do those. There's a name for that kind of highlight where it's like tapered. It's kind of what Daniel did too on the character. Sparkle, yep. Your highest peak of reflection is usually at the horizon line or where things turn. And that's again where I love how Quill gives you a stylized feel. Like that feels illustrated. And that car designers do this stuff. The other thing is, if you notice the reference guy back to these details here, this sort of ribbing and filleting and things like that, those details are really prized by car buffs. So that is done really nicely in Quill by just doing it as illustration lines. Like you would just see this, and I can even taper it nicely. So I do that, and then do the bright version up here. And then maybe dodge that. Right? So now that kind of starts to feel like it has like a nice little detail there. If I can go with like a string or two. Here, but right, and then you can get that up the way you would in an illustration too, which is nice. Really good freedom to have.
So do you usually do the highlights and what you're doing right now? Do you do it like on the fly like this, or do you usually make sure
At the
that you
end,
have your body
I
first?
would first do the body, but I'm trying to give you like a slice of how it works
Yeah.
first. But it doesn't matter really if you do it this way or the other way, as long as you know what you're doing. I want to also get the bottom of the car.
Sometimes it helps me also to do a little bit of the reflection just so I see the form in general, right? But then I
It's
do the
true.
refinements at the end.
You're right. I agree. I often don't do it, but then sometimes it is nice. So I did it also for myself there, not just for you guys, but like, yeah, sometimes I need to check it, make sure it works. That's like where the car turns under. Another thing that really gives it a sense of 3D-ness here. All you're really doing is following that curve. Oh, same as around the back. These want to reflect this horizon color. And this, oops, wants to the crisper this line is, the shinier the paint looks. And the higher contrast it is, the shinier it looks. The higher contrast and the sharper the horizon line is in the reflection, the shinier the material appears. So it's low contrast right now, lower contrast, and I'm going to pump up the contrast, and you can see that it makes it feel shinier because that's just how it works. The shinier, the more reflective, the more pure environment you see. This wants to be a nice consistent color that matches this roughly, right? And then these, which are pointing upwards, want to match this. Right? So now that looks like a slab of soap, which is kind of what you want, made out of chrome, essentially. Black chrome.
We're at the 1 hour mark, just so you know.
Wow. Okay. So there's that, right? There's that. Now, I mean, this is what happens to all these demos. We wind up continuing them. So I guess I could try to continue this one next week. It's going to be tough for me this particular week, but I'm fine continuing if you guys don't care.
It shouldn't go too long. I would say, like, if you find like a place where you can cut off the stream, like,
yeah,
you know, like
then,
by finishing maybe that rear portion, you know.
Yep, and maybe
And we can do a part 2.
We can do a part 2 even if it's not directly next week, right? I'm gonna do the front of this guy quickly.
Let's aim for going about 15 minutes over or something,
Okay,
15, 20 minutes.
Give me a time when you get there. Okay.
I don't want to distract you, or maybe Goro can answer it, but do you guys run into problems with highlights where in VR, because you change the viewpoints, then the highlights look out of whack?
Yes.
It really depends, where you put them. You can always design it
Exactly.
towards the view. So also like the way you treat them. Like for example, what Mike mentioned before with the wheel caps. He's not going to move them when he animates them, so it looks like a real reflection because reflections don't rotate like a texture, right? So same thing with eyeball highlights, for example, in the iris. You could actually literally sculpt an eye the way it's like shaped. Like I think Mike mentioned the Death Star last week. It's the shape of a Death Star. So if you indent the area of the iris and you just put a highlight where it would be on the cornea, then it will look correct. It will behave like a real highlight. So there's like a lot of tricks you can do to behave it like it would in like reality, but like you see here, Mike has been faking the highlights and it still looks good even if you rotate, and even if the highlights don't move, it still looks good. Like as you can see, he's rotating and the highlights look fine. So it's more about knowing exactly how highlights work and then you just fake it.
The other thing too is, I mean, you don't have to use this, but I have played with this before. You can use the directional brush to draw the highlight and draw them differently, but so that like it fades away at some angles, but then you want another one to appear at the right angles. You can play with that, but I find, like Doro said, it almost doesn't place it roughly close. Also depends on your camera angles. If I was going to shoot this from here, I probably would not. I'd pick a different highlight or maybe do a different one. Okay, so you got that. The other thing is like the lines and cut lines of doors are really important. So I'll just show you that too. Like, there's a door gap here.
Would you do these on an extra layer actually, or?
Yeah, sure.
No, I'm just asking because that stuff.
Oh, would I?
Yeah.
Maybe not the door gap. However, what I would do on the extra layer would probably be the interior, the glass, and the
Right.
dome. I mean, right now, I'll do extra layers till the end of time because I want to combine them. But to get it for Quest, you do want to keep it minimal. So I don't. Not for that. Like, that's cool. Like, the door cut line is really important in a car, too, right? So, like that. And then what I do with Quill is, doesn't have to be deadly accurate again. But you want to duplicate it, color it to get the highlight. That way it feels like it feels 3D. I mean, this is how you would actually sketch it if you were doing car illustration. You draw the cut line of the door, and you draw a highlight for that just to show someone that's where I'm going to put the door. So there's that. You see, to me, this is way more powerful than if I had to sit here and model this in ZBrush and make a mask for a door and blah, blah, blah. I will do that. I will when I want to render this properly. But to get the rough idea, I can do 50 HotRods in that time with different door cuts and show it to someone and they get the idea and then go in and do the detailed version with normal maps. Okay, so I got that. Now I'm going.
You might want to save again.
Yeah. So there's this, and then let's just do the canopy quickly, and then dupe it. That'll be enough for today, probably. That'll probably be 15. The canopy's really quick too. It's like canopy. Turn on the reference. So the canopy is pillars, A pillar, B pillar, C pillar, and the roof line, and the sill, essentially. Okay, that, and then you've got the where it turns, and then you've got roof, which is bowed, but what I'll do with that is draw flat and then grab tool that. Oops. Oops.
I usually like completely eliminate the inner radius, so you get like a super soft. Like you have like the inner radius pretty strong, right? I just do that, and then I can just push it up ever so slightly. Yeah, and make it super large. Yeah.
So right. And you're using your drawing here too, which is nice. Just to get that curve rough. And then just yeah, I'll go this. And my rough. All of it. It's okay. Like that. A little bit bigger. Get close. See. Yeah. Right. And then you can also grab that guy and use thicken. You know, like that. And then grab it. And you can get crazy accurate with this or stylize it. But those little breaks are not bad because that's, again, that's like the disturbance in the reflection map that looks pretty believable anyway. And then I just want to colorize it. Don't think. This stuff is facing horizon, so it's going to go to this color. And the stuff that's facing sky gets that. And then you can go, you know, like, this is where you go into dodge. Again, where this is bending, there's like a tight radius right here. I don't have to model it. I can illustrate it by just doing a gradation. Now it feels like it's turning. Same here. I want to grab this guy and just give it a little bit of a gradation to the warm down here. That indicates that this is also slightly bending. Guys. right? And let's see. So that's pretty good right there. Same with the back. You know, it's going to be just as quick. Forget the back of these. It's like right? You normally don't freehand, but it would be something like this. Break. Back glass. Okay. Okay, we'll do that roughly, right? And then you want to grab these guys and also do a grab tool. Oops. Okay, like that. The warbles you can sit here and get rid of, but it's all about, see how I'm changing my eye angle? That's how you, the warbles, these little shapes, because, you know, reflections generally, that's like, oh, was the car in an accident? Why did it have, you know? So keeping reflections smooth and continuous makes things look generally more machined. So this is not the ideal way to do this guy, like whatever. Right. And you can also do this with a tube, by the way. That's another way to do that. Just draw a tube, taper it, stick it in there. It would actually look probably really good. But the idea is the same. The idea is that you're, you know, modeling by doing profiles and curves and intersections. Okay, so there's that. And doing the front, same thing. It's like, oops. By using the line tool, you guarantee you're drawing on a cardinal axis. It's not off tilt. On a hot rod, the windshield is pretty vertical. In a regular car, it's not. I will grab these two and just grab tool them to get them to like bend. Not ideal, but it works. Cool, something like that, right? And then for glass, same thing. I would do glass as a new layer. Glass. Don't use transparency if you don't have to. It's nicer to just use solids. So, like, the glass will generally be reflecting the environment. So, okay, so it's probably going to be, and I'll use this guy so I can get to be a super example of that.
For this type of hot rod, it could be like super tinted glass. But if you want to look inside, obviously you can use transparency. But the recommendation is, I think I've said it a few times before, but using layer transparency versus variable transparency versus brush transparency. So layer transparency 25%, 50%, or 75 looks best on both Quest and Rift. And also when you record videos, you might have noticed if you have variable transparency that you see a lot of grain when you capture videos, and that's because of the way transparency is computed via dithering technique. So it looks good on Rift, but it doesn't look good in a video. So make sure if you use transparency to use 25, 50, or 75% layer opacity for best results.
I think like those HotRods, they are usually tinted, so I would grab all the glass, and this is what's fun too, is you can darken. You can go all the way black. It can be darker than the. It can be darker than the metal, right? Or you can do that and dust some glue on there. And really, all that matters, because these are flat planes, is a gradation. This is almost enough, and really it's almost arbitrary sometimes where it comes from. The other thing too is big plane changes, so front to side would be good to differentiate. Say that, and then maybe the back is have more of the orange to it or something.
You're 20 minutes in.
Okay, so that's basically
20 minutes over, I mean.
That's basically what I wanted to cover, right? And then the last thing is you could do like stylized reflections. You could do this kind of stuff too. You know, the way you would, again, if you were illustrating. You might do this and that. Cool. Like I can't do that in my own. And that's my style. It's like only something I can do. And that's where I would do this kind of stuff. Like I want to get the door thickness. Right? Or the opposite. That. Or use this brush so that you don't have to be, doesn't look like a ribbon. Actually, it looks 3D. That. He's showing you different techniques. So here's a highlight. This indicates like, oh, there's a little ring light right there. Same thing here. You know,
One thing to note, I also mentioned it in my optimization tutorial, but different brushes cause draw calls.
Draw calls.
In this case, it's fine because Mike is not planning to put like crazy, like a lot of characters in there or something. It's only the car, so it doesn't really apply. But if you have multiple different brush strokes in one layer, you will see that the draw calls go up. So just be aware of that.
Like this. So far, I've used this, and this, which is 3 draw calls. When I could have done it all with this. So that's a great example. And I didn't really need the ribbon brush for this, the disc brush. I just kind of was trying to show you a different way to use it. Ideally, yes, I would not use anything but this flat brush. Or I would sacrifice and use 2 of them, but that doubles your draw count. And then everything pointing to the ground, this is what Daniel was doing too with the like lips and eyelids and things like that, is this, right? So now I'm like, oh yeah, that's like got some thickness to it. And that's essentially it. That is how you will get to this. Tail lights, same thing. It's like just draw them. This is also where it's really nice. I can do, I can do that, and it looks way cooler than. Okay, so there's that. And then, the rest is mostly just the duplicate and mirror. So now I'm going to grab this whole body.
Yeah, I wonder if we want to save this for like when you've done the engine and stuff, right?
Yeah,
The complete half. Oh, there you go.
And even like the flames and things like that would be nice. Yeah, why don't we stop it here, and I can finish the painting the one half, duping it, and then quickly showing you the drive loop with the animations, because that doesn't.
Yeah, I think like
that
complicated
long.
stuff like the engine would be definitely nice to see too. And if you
Sure, because that's really different, right? Like I won't with the engine, I won't sit here and model it this way. It'll be about primitives. So yeah, different.
You want to save at this point?
Yeah. Save it.
And then there will be a part 2 of this class.
Yeah, part 2. Okay, I'm going to stop the stream now. Stop the recording.